This is episode number 176. It's a resource list. These are the tools that I use to make podcasts, write blog posts, write books, and get things done. That's coming up.
This is the Red Podcast. How to take your idea and make a name for yourself within your industry and beyond. Spread your message. Attract a following. Rise above the noise. Here's your host, David Hooper.
This show comes to you from Nashville, Tennessee. Probably didn't know that. You were expecting something like, this show comes to you from Nashville, Tennessee. But I don't talk like that. I talk like a Nashvillian, not the Nashvillians that you see on TV. Regarding Nashville, Tennessee, earlier this week, in the middle of the night, developers tore down a historic building right in the middle of downtown. It was on Broadway and about 4th Avenue, I think is where this building was, the Trail West building. If you've ever been to downtown Nashville, the section that I call Nash Vegas, a lot of neon lights, bars, guys in cowboy hats putting on a show for you. You've probably walked by the Trail West building. Anyway, they tore it down. It's no longer there. It's a parking lot, probably going to be a condo or some kind of tall building. That's what's happening in Nashville now. There's a lot of construction going on. And just to comment on that, because it relates to your business. Over the last couple years, Nashville has had major growth. Major growth. A lot of people want to live here. We've got our own television show now. It's kind of like Dallas, the drama. A lot of famous musicians, not just country musicians, but rock musicians, moving to Nashville from Los Angeles, from New York to get away from that. Cheaper cost of living, better lifestyle. And because of all this growth, there's need for more housing, there's need for more roads, need for more infrastructure. So people are coming to Nashville from outside of Nashville. They're coming here to have a certain lifestyle that we've developed here in Nashville. But because of so many people and bigger buildings and more traffic, the lifestyle is changing. Now, that's very similar to your business. You've got a business, and if you're like a lot of people, certainly like me, you've thought about growing that business. You've thought about bringing on more employees. You've thought about taking investment money. You've thought about expanding on everything that you're doing. And that's fine for some people, but for a lot of people, what you find out is that what you had and what you were trying to expand on disappears. And what you've grown into is something completely different. This is why you'll see so many people take big investments, sell their company to somebody else, but stay on and be completely miserable. So just something for you to chew on. Right now, where you are in your business, where you are in your life, it may not be that flashy, but it may be exactly what you need. My point being, don't buy into the hype that you have to grow everything, you have to make more money, you have to expand. You may be exactly where you need to be and actually enjoy where you are now more than you would if you were to expand. This is the Red Podcast, the marketing podcast for influencers. If you're a blogger, you're a podcaster, speaker, marketer, a nonfiction author, somebody with a message to spread, this is the podcast to help you do it. The focus is how to take your idea, make a name for yourself, and make money. Since starting Red Podcast, and really before that, I often have had people ask me, what are the tools that you use to run and grow your business? I'm going to go into that on this episode. Kayla Viola, she sent me a Twitter message right as I was going into the studio, and she asked me about background music for podcasting. I'm going to start out with that, just to give a quick list of the tools that I use to make Red Podcast. If you want to see a list of everything, redpodcast.com/equipment. Just going to go over some of the basics. Kayla, she asked me about background music. This is what my background is actually in. Film and television licensing, taking the songs that I owned, either through writing them myself, recording them myself, or through signing deals with other musicians and composers, and then licensing that music. And if you have a podcast and you're going to use music, you need to make sure that it is licensed. Otherwise, you can run into trouble with that. So for background music, what I like to do is get a royalty-free music, and that doesn't mean that you don't pay for it, but it means that the license is a flat rate fee. It's very cheap. They're composers that only do royalty-free music. You can get something for about $20, use it on your podcast all you want. And for that, I use a company called Audio Jungle. It's not going to be music that you've heard, but it's going to be music that's very similar to what you've heard. In other words, if you want to use a Rolling Stones song, that's going to cost you some money, but you can get something that sounds a lot like the Rolling Stones. And these are also instrumental tracks. Not all of them, most of them. And for a podcast, that's what you want because you're talking over the music. You don't want the vocals from a song that you're playing to interfere with what you're saying. So that's what we use for music. Again, redpodcast.com/equipment has all the physical equipment that I use. Basically, the quick and dirty is I've got a microphone. It's called the ATR 2100. It's made by a company called Audio Technica. It's about $50. When I started Red Podcast with Laurel, we looked at getting more expensive mics, specifically the RE20. It's a mic by a company called Electro Voice. It's the standard for radio broadcasting. It's what I've used for over a decade for my syndicated show. It's also $500. Most people don't have that kind of money to spend. Because I've got a lot of other podcasters listening to Red Podcast, I wanted to take a cheap mic and stretch it as far as I could. Very happy with ATR 2100. Go to redpodcast.com/equipment if you want a place that you can get that for about $50. Plug straight into your computer. Use free software. It's called Audacity. You're good to go. Now, to listen to podcasts, I use an app on my iPhone. It's called RSS Radio. I love it. It lets me pick every single podcast that I want to listen to, have a playlist. It also makes sure that I never miss episodes of my favorite podcast. RSS Radio. Look it up in the App Store if you're interested in that. If I'm not listening to something on my iPhone, I'm listening on my iPod. Much better for the gym, much smaller, easier to maneuver. And I do that with a pair of wireless LG headphones, the HBS model, and there are actually a few of those. Just pick one of them. You're not going to go wrong, especially if you're just listening to spoken word. So as far as making podcasts and listening to podcasts, those are the resources that I use. redpodcast.com/equipment if you're interested in the exact equipment that I use to make Red Podcast. As far as software goes, I've already mentioned Audacity. I both record Red Podcast and edit on Audacity, record into a PC. It's some kind of Dell laptop. Dell actually sent it to me free. It looks like one of those MacBook Airs, but I'm not a PC guy, so this is all that I use it for. So I don't know a lot about it. Transfer the recorded file onto something I do know a little bit more about, and that's a Macintosh. Audacity works on both, and the Macintosh is how I edit Red Podcast. As far as getting things done, I use a program called Things. It's a to-do list. It works on my iPhone, it works on my iPad, and it works on my Macintosh, so I can sync things up if I'm ever out and I think, hey, I need to do this. Tap it into my phone. It's back at my desktop when I get back to it. And that lets me work from a list, which I've found a very effective way to get things done. I do that with a Pomodoro timer. You've heard me talk about the Pomodoro method. Look up Pomodoro. You'll find all sorts of software that you can use. If you've got a kitchen timer, if you've got a watch with an alarm, set it for 25 minutes, then go. Work on that task, take a 5-minute break, set it for 25 minutes, start the next session, and repeat until you're done with your work. I was recently being interviewed on a podcast. It's called 5 a.m. Miracle. It's by a guy named Jeff Sanders. He's also here in Nashville. It's a great podcast about productivity. I'll link that in the resource list. That'll be at redpodcast.com/176. And he asked me, and I thought this was a very genuine question. He said, are you really using the Pomodoro method? And the answer is yes. I don't use it on everything, but I've found it extremely effective when I've got a task such as finishing up my new book, which I'm in the process of now, and I'm meeting that resistance, what Stephen Pressfield calls resistance, where I want to go do everything else but write. I set the timer to 25 minutes, sit down in front of the computer, and don't move except to write for that 25 minutes. It's a great technique. I've talked about it before. If you go to redpodcast.com, search Pomodoro, I've got episodes where I go much more in depth into this. So to get tasks done, I have a task list. It's called Things. I work with a timer to make sure that I stick with that task list. And I also have a long-term strategy, which is what I call streaks. And there's actually a program that I use. It's an app. It's called Goal Streaks, basically a calendar. And when I complete a task for the day, simply X off the calendar, and I try to have a chain. So some projects that I've worked these things 50 days in a row, 100 days in a row sometimes. If I break the chain, I've got to start all over again. I try to do that when I'm writing. So between having it on a list of daily tasks, Pomodoro, and having a streak that I don't want to break, I found that a lot easier as far as getting things done. And on that subject, I'm fooling around with something called Rescue Time. I used it a long time ago, and this is basically a time bank. You may have done this where you write down everything that you do in a day for 7 straight days, and you find where your time is going. So are you spending too long brushing your teeth, driving to work, procrastinating, arguing with your spouse, eating, watching television, or are you actually being effective? A time bank will help you to see that. Rescue Time is very good for online tasks. Spending too much time at Facebook, it's going to let you know. Spending too much time on Twitter, that's going to let you know. There's also a great program called Self-Control that will block out any site that you want to. So while you're on your computer, if you're having trouble staying focused, I would suggest Rescue Time. That'll let you know where your time is going, and you can block out certain sites via either Rescue Time or the Self-Control app. I don't do it often, but sometimes I do have guests here on Red Podcast. When I schedule a guest, I use a program. It's called Schedule Once. You may be familiar with this. It's at scheduleonce.com, just a few bucks a month. And it allows people within parameters that I set. So I can say I'm available Monday, I'm available Tuesday, I'm available Friday, and then give the specific times. It allows people to look at my calendar and set up a time that works for them and that works for me and put it on the calendar automatically. So this is great for interviews. It's great if you're a coach, you're a consultant, if you're working with various people and you've got a lot of appointments and you don't want to have that back and forth. Scheduleonce.com. It goes straight to the calendar that I use, which is iCal, and I use that on my Mac, also on the phone when I'm out, just like Things. So if I'm out and something comes up, an appointment that I need to put on the books, I can do it while I'm mobile. It's back at my desktop when I get back to the office. I like to keep things very simple when it comes to organization. I believe that less is more, and if I can take away things rather than add more things, such as apps, such as new devices, new technology, that I'm going to get more done just because there's less to do. So as far as organization, one of the things that I like to do is I've got a password program. It's called 1Password. There's a version available for PC. There's a version available for Macintosh. There's a version for iPhone, for iPad. This thing is great. It lets me put all my important information as far as logins, as far as bank information, as far as any kind of documents, passcodes, all in one place. It's called 1Password. I'm going to have all these linked from the episodes, by the way. redpodcast.com/176. You just want to see a list of everything. When I'm traveling, I've already talked about iCal. I love it because I can take it anywhere I go thanks to my iPhone. And another automation that I use is something called TripIt. TripIt is a great app. When you get your schedule, your itinerary from either a hotel, from an airline, bus, however you're traveling, you mail it to TripIt. It will put everything in your calendar automatically, sync with your phone, sync with iCal. It's fantastic. It's called TripIt. They've also got an option, and this is great when you're flying a lot, where they'll look at the flights that you've booked, monitor flights during that time, and if they can either rebook you on the airline because prices have dropped or rebook you on another airline that has a less expensive ticket, they can save you money that way. It pays for itself. It's an amazing service. TripIt. Speaking of traveling, something that I do because I don't like to carry important data around and because a lot of my stuff is in the cloud now, I've got a Chromebook. If you're not familiar with these, this is something by Google, and the actual computer that I have is a Samsung. It connects to the internet. All your Google information is up there. If I were to lose the Chromebook, I can connect via another Chromebook. It's like working from the same computer. So you no longer have to worry about losing your computer when you go away. If you ever lose your Chromebook, if it gets stolen, you can get another Chromebook, log in, and start exactly from where you left off. It's amazing. Everything is in the cloud. So I use Gmail, I use Google Docs, the calendar. We talked about iCal. That works in conjunction with Google Calendar. So you got your email, your docs, your calendar, everything is there. Chromebook, if you're traveling a lot, that plus TripIt. It's amazing peace of mind to know that you can go away and not lose important documents because they're all backed up into a cloud. The one downside of this is it has very limited functionality if you're away from the internet. It's more like a doorstop at that point. So if you're not going to be near an internet connection, it may not be for you. If you are, it is a great travel companion. I mentioned writing my book. That's one of the things that I got the Chromebook for initially because I was traveling at the time, wanted to be able to write wherever I was. The new book, this is the first full book that I'm writing on a program called Scrivener. It is a program designed especially for authors, for screenwriters. If you write a lot, well worth the investment. Really helps you to organize things because instead of one big document, it puts things into a bunch of little documents. It's almost like working from note cards if you've ever used that organization method for your writing. And in fact, it has a note card option. So you can visualize your book as note cards on the computer screen. It's not as good as real note cards to me, but it's close. And if you like working for a computer, it's worth the money. I don't remember how much it is, maybe $50, $60, worth it. After I write, when it goes to editing, that's when I switch things over to Word. I'm not a Word fan. I normally use OpenOffice, but Word is what every editor that I've ever used has. Therefore, kind of had to get on that bandwagon. When I'm working on the blog, 23hours.com, and also redpodcast.com. Mars Edit is what I use. It interacts directly with WordPress. I don't mind writing directly into WordPress, but like I was talking about the Chromebook, when your internet connection goes out, and that does happen from time to time, it's easy to lose what you're working on. Mars Edit, it's a Macintosh program. It lets you save everything locally. It's got a great spell checker. It's got a great layout system. You can then upload your completed post all in one chunk into WordPress. Do any extra kind of editing that you need, add a feature image, use keywords. You can change everything in WordPress before you press publish, or you can publish directly. So those are the two things that I use for writing. Scrivener for the book, Mars Edit for the blog post. One final category, if you're doing presentations, I use Keynote. PowerPoint is fine. I'm a Macintosh guy, though. The thing I love about Keynote is that I can work the presentation out on my desktop, transfer it to either an iPhone or an iPad, much more portable. Plug one of those into the projector, and I'm good to go. Keynote, even if you're a PowerPoint fan, worth checking out. It's a great presentation program by Apple. So that's what I use. That's it. Keep it simple. Less is more. If you can take away something, your life is going to be a lot less complicated than if you add something, even if adding something to it is supposed to save you time. Thank you so much for listening. If you've got questions, you've got comments, you've got a suggestion for a future episode, reach out to me at David Hooper is how to do that. And if you've got a friend that you think is going to be helped by this, please tell them. That's how the show has grown. Just send them to redpodcast.com. Tell them to sign up. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Red Podcast.
You've been listening to Red Podcast, Real Entrepreneur Development. Subscribe today using iTunes, Stitcher, or via RSS at redpodcast.com.